seemed like such fun until you lose.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Swans Bigfooty Podcast. My name is Bonz. Joining me tonight is Vonn,
Hi.
Swansrule,
Hello.
and SM.
Hey guys.
Now, unfortunately, we're coming off a very, very disappointing game against Collingwood, and I believe Vonn wanted to have the first rant.
I do, because I have a whole A4 page of things to rant about. First one, what was our forward line? What even was our forward line? Like, I think we probably spent an aggregate of, 13 million or something ridiculous like that, recruiting Franklin and Tippett and securing Reid, and there was actually no one to kick to. When our midfield did actually find, I guess, the space to kick the ball to the forward line, it always went to the Collingwood's loose man in defence, and because there was no one to even make a contest of it, it was just the most easiest rebound for them off half-back. Meanwhile, the ball is just, instead of someone knocking it down and giving our crummers a chance, it would literally just go out the minute it would come back in. So that really, really pissed me off, considering how much we've invested. And I know Tippett is injured, but still, we played Reid as the loose man in defence, and while I do see why they do that to combat Travis Cloak, it made no sense with Rowan out to put the only man who was going to mark for us in defence, because it just completely screwed everything up. Another thing I wanted to whinge about was our midfield performance. When I looked at the stats, I honestly thought, being at the game, I didn't really have a good view of getting to see who was on who and all of that, but I thought that Sydney lost the clearances. So I was really surprised to see we actually won them, and we actually won most of the major stats as well. But what really did stand out was our disposals. We overhandled the ball. We had more handballs, whereas they had more kicks. And given when the game was there to be won, which was in about the third quarter, and that was when it started raining, we just kept handballing, and I don't know, our midfield just looked as though they had nowhere to go, so eventually they would just get tackled, and it was just ridiculous. And my last thing to complain about, aside from the poor kicking, which is skills, was work rate. There was no run off anywhere, and in the absence of a forward line, you'd think our midfield in 2012, which is the reason why we won the grand final, you'd think our midfield would stand up and go and create options forward by running, but they just did not do that. And finally, I want to apologise because I sound deathly, deathly ill, and that's because I actually bothered to sit and watch my team get thrashed. So, anyway, continue. Someone else.
SM, do you want to give your views on the match?
Yeah, I have to agree with pretty much everything Vonn said. Being at the match, commenting to RW and Grim and Vonn and Soph about the fact that every single time we went into our forward 50, it was as if they had an extra two players down there. We just had no forward structure for the entire game, and it just seems crazy that, as Vonn says, we've recruited these two high-profile forwards, and it's like we haven't prepared for them being in the team. We have no structure, no effort put into what we're going to do with the ball when we have ball in hand, and our delivery is just shocking. And it happened time and time again, and it just gets to a point where you just... what do you say? What can you actually say about the way we're playing at the moment? Because it's pathetic.
Swansrule, any different views on the game?
No, it's hard to be too positive about that game, really. Half-time I didn't feel too bad. I thought, we might struggle out of this with a scrappy win that we'd probably criticise, but at least we'd be on the board. But the biggest concern I have at the moment is the second half fade-outs. All up for the year. What are we? We've kicked 1 goal 7 in last quarters to 9-11 in the two games combined. That's in the last quarter. Second halves, I think, what are we on? 5 goals to 15 or something ridiculous like that. And to me, that just raises concerns. It's either the players are fading and just aren't good enough, or there's genuine fitness worries and we give up and stop running out the game, which is just, there's not a lot to like about being a Swans fan at the moment.
I actually wholeheartedly agree with you, Swansrule. The biggest question I wanted to raise was, who the hell has run our preseason this year? From what we had heard from people who had come across the training and everyone from the club talking, yes, it's always going to be slightly biased and positively tinted that we're absolutely flying. We're hearing about players left, right and centre breaking their time trial records, their fitness boundaries, but this year it's basically as if, look, we weren't a great last quarter team either last year, but it's something that needs to be addressed. If we're going to be getting outrun every last quarter, we're not going to win many matches of football, if any at all.
But it's not just the last quarter. I mean, we've only won 2 quarters of football for the year, and they've both been the first quarters. We lost the second, third and fourth quarters to GWS, and we've done the same against the Pies. We make 1 quarter effort and then just roll over.
Maybe the pre-season was like really, 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 really good, and they're just very, very tired from all the running.
I probably hope so.
Because
I'm going to offer an alternative theory here. It's not necessarily one that I believe, but I think it contributed to GWS and maybe not so much to last week or yesterday, whatever. But I don't know. I think maybe there's a chance that there's a little bit of arrogance and a little bit of the players believing their own hype and not feeling like they need to perform to that level of output to actually get the results that everyone are predicting us to get. If that makes sense at all.
yeah, I thought that looked the way, especially against GWS, that she'll be right, we'll win this game attitude. It probably wasn't there as much last night, but I do get what you're saying there. But I don't know.
First quarter last night, I think there was a passage of play where Hanbury just seemed to be jogging towards the ball, and the Pies player was sprinting at it, and we're just sitting there saying, what's he on about? He needs to be putting in 100% effort. And as the game wore on and we were further and further behind, the players started to put in a bit more effort, but it's too late then. When the Pies get on their roll, you need to be putting in the effort from the start of the first siren until the end of the game.
Yep. One of the biggest concerns to me was that was a god-awful game. Like, I actually came out of that thinking Collingwood will be lucky to make the 8, and they just beat us.
Gosh, Nathan Buckley said in his presser that even though they won, he rated it a 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10 game on Collingwood's behalf. So it's like, where does that leave us? It's not as though we can kind of fault the boys for saying, maybe we just weren't good enough, we're not as good as we think we are. But you look at the statistics, you look at the teams on paper, and you're just left wondering, how could you lose something like that? Like, I don't know. Like, I guess all of the Swans fans thought we were a lock, the top 4, and it's a bit embarrassing because, we probably won't even make the 4 now, and now it's like we're struggling to even beat a potential top 8 side.
The thing about that game last night, and it struck me about that game, it struck me about the Western Bulldogs North game, and it struck me about the Tigers Carlton game, is that the general quality of footy this year, apart from a few teams, has been really, really low. And watching our game last night, the foot skills from both sides, we were basically playing like bottom 8 sides or bottom 10 sides. And the fact that we couldn't get over a Pies side that, to be honest, was pretty average, and we were actually worse, is probably the worst thing out of last night.
Okay, what would you guys do to currently improve our performance? Swansrule.
I guess if I knew that, I'd probably get a job at the club. But I think the fish is rotting at the head. If I had a spotlight to put on a few people, it would be, I'd start number 1, Jared McVeigh. The more he gets the ball, the worse it is for the club at the moment. And whoever measures clangers in a game of football is rather lenient on him because his decision-making is shit house. One prime example was Franklin leading out about 30 from goal, could have hit him up right in the centre, and he goes wide to the boundary to O'Keefe. That stuck out in my mind, just as stupid football. So I think that there needs to be a change with senior players need to be made more accountable, I guess is what I'm getting at there. So maybe not just make the token changes like a ladler from round 1. I think it's time to actually punish people who don't perform as well as they should and make them play reserves. And that includes someone even if they're the captain.
What was the biggest issue that stood out for me was Reid going back in defence, and I think, Vonn, you commented on it at the game when you said that if we'd been up forward all of the game, we would have actually had a forward option. But our forward structure was so terrible because we actually didn't have anyone staying at home in the forward line. Franklin was leading up the ground, Reid was in defence, our entire forward line was cleared out except for maybe a Pike, maybe, I don't know, like a Rowan or someone. We need someone to stay at home in the forward line, so we'll always have an option there leading out of the forward 50, because kicking the ball onto Franklin's head is not the way to get him into the game, and we need to learn how to bring him into the game, which is to kick him on the run, hit his chest on the run, give him some marks, give him some run in the forward 50.
But that's modern footy, though, this year. It seems to be that the forward 50 gets cleared out, and the teams that do well are the teams that get back quickly and create an option. We don't. We've gone from being one of the hardest running sides to getting the options back in the forward 50 to just people hands on hips not getting back. It's
Absolutely.
Lazy.
Where's the Rowan? Where's the Jetta? Where's the Hanbury tearing into the forward 50 like they did in 2012?
Yep. And I mean, we highlighted the last time, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about when was the last time you saw Jetta take off and run. And first half last night, you saw little signs that he was doing it a little bit, but it's just not him and Rowan. It's not happening, and it's just flat-footed handballs to flat-footed people, and we just look slow.
Overhand balling.
I do want to say that all these players you've mentioned, Rowan, for starters, they're not really playing him in the position where he can afford to run, which is their first issue. But aside from that, you also have to look at the inside players and how much supply they can get out. And at the moment, they'll get a possession, Kennedy, all of our inside ball getters, all their numbers are down. And when they do get it, it's under pressure, and they're not sleek enough. And I remember in 2012 grand final, there was an article where someone said that, I can't remember who now, but he was admiring the fact that the Swans were so clean and they were practicing their handball drills whilst Hawthorn was practicing their kicking. And it's just such a stark contrast to how we are playing. We're so messy, we're so overhandling. I feel almost like it's a conflict of two game plans. We want to play a certain way, but because we've added 2 new recruits, it's very hard to play that game style.
The side's success has been traditionally built on contested possession, and the last 16 games we've only won the contested possession 8 times, and coincidentally we also won 8 games out of the last 16, which were mainly against rubbish sides. We're not winning contested possession anymore. We're not playing that tough inside. We're not getting the forward structure back in play. It's all just points to work rate for me and fitness. We're either playing players who aren't fit and healthy, or the players aren't working hard enough, and there's an attitude problem amongst the team.
And the problem is that then you then say, well, what is the attitude problem? And you come to a very obvious answer, which is the one that a lot of people league-wide would be pointing to.
Yep, except that I would actually probably say he was one of the hardest working players last night.
No, don't get me wrong. But he was excellent.
SM was going to say complacency.
Oh, no, I was going to suggest that perhaps there's an attitude problem with some of our mid-tier players because of Buddy. I think Buddy was excellent, actually. I just wanted to say both his goals were excellently taken and he made the most of his opportunities. But you almost have to start to wonder whether the rest of the list is now sort of developing an attitude problem because of him.
Or has our success come at the price that we've grinded some of these players to the point where they have nothing left to give, like an O'Keefe for sure, a Ted Richards, even a McVeigh, that the success came by driving so many minutes out of their bodies and tackles and pressure that, O'Keefe looks like a shadow of someone who finished top 5 last year in the best and fairest.
O'Keefe almost should have retired at the end of last year, the way he started the season.
But if I had said that to you at the end of last year, we all probably would have said, no, he's got another year, maybe 2.
Yeah. But that's the thing, and everyone said the same about Goods when he got that 2-year deal or 3-year deal, where the end can come very quickly for the older blokes, and just because they finish the season a certain way doesn't mean that they'll carry it into the next year.
And we haven't been good at managing the minutes of senior players over the last few years. We haven't rested and rotated like a Geelong have to extract a bit more out of those players. So
which I actually, sorry.
No, you're right. You go.
I was kind of suggesting that, and I think it was the first podcast in terms of players like Shaw I said Shaw specifically, but you'd look at someone like O'Keefe as well, that maybe they do need to start to get rotated, like happens at a Geelong or a Hawthorn.
The only issue
because
is...
they are...
Sorry, I just want to say the only issue is, it's not as though we've had success for as long as Geelong have. And last year we were so flat out with injuries. It was, it was hard to micromanage when we couldn't even get players on the field. So
Well, I
from
disagree with that.
2012.
Because since 2003, Geelong, Sydney have won by far the most games between the
Yeah.
two teams. We've
Yeah.
been up there for almost a decade. Same as Geelong. We've won 2 premierships, they've won 3 in that time.
But what I'm trying to say is their dominance was so much more overt than ours. Like, I know if you look at
Oh, yeah, it was.
statistics, yeah.
And they used more. I reckon they played more debutants in that time than we did, and they still had a better record than us.
At the same time, if we're going to be looking back on previous years or even resting players this year, we shouldn't be using the possibility of resting players as an excuse at the moment. We're only at the start of the season.
We're not saying that they're tired because they've been playing too much. We're just saying that guys like O'Keefe, his body has taken a lot of hits over the years because he hasn't been rested in previous years.
Exactly.
But you can make that comment now because you have the benefit of hindsight. You couldn't.
Oh, yeah.
It would be inconceivable that 2 years ago we dropped O'Keefe just because we had the luxury to.
But that's the point, that at clubs like Geelong and Hawthorn that is conceivable, and look at how their squad is being managed consistently. And Geelong have stayed at such a high level of competition because of the fact that they rotate through their squads and actually blood a lot of young players.
Oh no, definitely. I'm definitely not disagreeing that it's the best way to manage players. But given we haven't been doing that, and we can't really afford to lately, the last year or so.
Okay, so we may as well actually go into the next section. What do you guys actually believe are going to be our ins and outs this week? Swansrule, do you want to take us away?
Yeah, okay. Well, let's presume no one's available from injury. Otherwise, I would bring LRT back. I'm not sure. I just think there needs to be changes to the way we play more than personnel at the moment. But it's easy enough to say, well, I'd like to drop maybe a Shaw or a McVeigh or an O'Keefe. But I think, I'm just talking crap. I'd probably drop O'Keefe. I don't think he's got a spot in the team at the moment. And I'm not sure who. I didn't see the reserve, so hopefully someone else can shed some light on who can come in.
Well, in all honesty, right now, I haven't seen too many of the reserves games being based currently in Melbourne, but I would like to see us drop O'Keefe. I agree with that. He looked very out of place on the weekend, and I don't know, he just doesn't quite seem up to it anymore, which is a bit of a worry. If you look at our best players on the weekend, they were Brandon Jack, Xavier Richards, Alia, Laidlaw. So, I'd like to bring in Brandon Jack for Ryan O'Keefe. I know it isn't exactly a like-for-like replacement.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I agree with that.
It isn't exactly a like-for-like replacement.
I don't know. You could bring in Jesus Christ at the moment, and I don't think it would make much bloody difference the way they're playing. He'd probably just stand in the forward 50 and get ignored or something, or wouldn't work hard enough.
If we're going to bring in LRT, and although we all wanted everyone to bring in a second ruckman last week, I think Derek's, whilst he was competent in the hitouts and the ruck contest on the weekend, around the get round, he was found to be a little out of his depth, and he may even get suspended for that hit on Pendlebury. So,
yeah, but if you can't crack Richmond's best 20, so you're probably not.
I'd personally drop Derek's and Ryan O'Keefe, and I'd bring in Brandon Jack and Xavier Richards.
Yeah.
I'd love to be
Richards.
Oh,
Richards,
and
okay.
as a third dropping, I'd try to bring in LRT if he's fit, and possibly, I'm not sure who the last player to drop would be. Maybe Cunningham.
No, you can't drop him. He was so impressive. He was actually. I'm surprised you say that because if I look at the best players.
Not Cunningham, sorry, Rowan. I got it mixed up.
Okay, right. I was about to say he had a really good game. I thought.
Rowan, I think, needs some time just after the injury just to really get some form again. Oh, that was a bad slip of the tongue. No, I meant...
To be fair, though, I thought Derek's actually had quite a good game. His forward 50 pressure was really impressive. He laid some really good tackles.
But we're saying he might get forced to be out because of the suspension. I actually wouldn't mind if he was suspended because, like we said last week, we really want to see Nan Curvis come in. So it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if he was suspended for a week. It wouldn't hurt to try out a backup ruckman that is providing LRT is not fit.
Personally, look, even if he doesn't get suspended, I just felt like his pressure in the forward 50 was okay, but he was slow on his feet, and he doesn't exactly have the greatest disposal efficiency in the world. I'm just worried about that, that's all. But admittedly,
From where SM and I were sitting, which is pretty close to the goals, I personally thought that he was actually quite a good target in the forward line. I was quite surprised by that because he really did actually try to tap the ball to the ground when he couldn't mark it, and he did get in a lot of spoils at critical moments. So I didn't think his effort was too bad, but that being said, I haven't watched a replay. I don't know what he was like around the ground.
I'm not saying his effort wasn't bad, I just don't think he can read the play that well if it's not in the air.
His effort was good, he's just not a good footballer.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. It's like there was a lot of people who looked like they were there on the Make-A-Wish program sort of thing playing for the Swans on the weekend. And he was one of them.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That's actually Adam Good's foundation or something. He was on the news. But
Look, to me, it's not about personnel changes. It's about attitude, work rate, game plan. I mean, Nick Maxwell looked like a star on the weekend. He was probably second best after Pendlebury, and that says it all. Like, man, he went up. Jesus Christ. I don't know.
The only reason why Maxwell could play so well and get that many is because we all know that he's the loose man. And that kind of gives credit to just how bad our kicking into the forward line is if we can make him look like a Brownlow potential winner.
Yeah, but how long does it take Longmire to react to that? The fact that Maxwell's racking up marks, intercept marks and possessions, the game's on the line, we're not scoring, the ball keeps going to Maxwell. Where's the coaching move? Where's the manning up? Or
apparently his reaction to that was, let's move our only genuine forward who can mark into the back line.
Every time they crossed to Longmire in the coach's box, he was doodling or picking his bum or something.
At one point it looked like he was sleeping.
Yeah.
I don't think he was sleeping.
Wasn't, but he looked like it. And then someone nudged him and said, mate, you're on screen. He kind of snapped and looked around. Looked very confused.
Yeah, exactly.
I felt like as soon as Reid was moved to defence, it was almost like we'd given up. It was just sort of stem the tide.
Do you think we should fade out the podcast about 3/4 of the way through now, like the club seems to fade in every game? Or
yeah.
Should we keep going?
Just kind of
I
struggle.
want to know, do you plan your jokes in advance or... No?
Me? No.
You write them down. Write them down during the week.
I write them during the last quarter of the Swans game, so not much is happening.
Yeah. But it's the thing is, and it'll be really interesting to see how we go against Adelaide this week because 2 games in a row, it's just, a coincidence the way that we've been playing. But if we do it for a 3rd week in a row, it becomes a really worrying trend. And I saw some stat that we haven't started the season 0-3 since 1999.
Yeah.
So the Adelaide game now becomes really, really important.
Well, the only team since 2006 to go from 0 to make the 8 is Carlton last year when they got put in the 8. The last time was actually us in 2006. So it's a bit of a worry if we can't win this week.
Yeah.
Statistics suggest that we're actually not going to make the 8.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, if we start at 0-3, that you genuinely have to start wondering about that because it's only early in the season, but it's so hard to swing the momentum when you start 0-3.
And our next few opponents aren't exactly easy beats either. After that, we've got North and then Fremantle.
Okay, but I think Vonn may have just dropped out then. Look, Swansrule, who do you believe actually, looking towards the Adelaide game,
Yep.
who do you guys actually, what do you actually think is going to go forward with the match? Who do you believe we have to tag and man up on forward?
Well, Dangerfield's an obvious one. He's the
Dangerfield's surprised me with how quiet it's been in the first 2 weeks, though.
Yeah, I saw most of the Geelong game and they were really targeted him everywhere and bumping him off the ball and just going full steam into Dangerfield because so much of what Adelaide does relies on him at the moment, especially with their injuries, I think. I didn't see much of the game on the weekend, but I think he's still the sort of player in our current form who could easily have a ripping game if we don't man him up. I think, but I think Adelaide are the one side in the comp, apart from maybe Melbourne, who look even shittier than us. So I'm reasonably optimistic going into this week that we can turn things around.
In all honesty,
if we don't knock off Adelaide, then we're in serious trouble. Because as you say, they haven't looked too good so far.
No, and I don't. Podsy Adley still hasn't kicked a goal, has he? Or
I don't think so.
Betts has looked all right, but
we've got Nick Smith
Betts is
for
almost
Betts.
their most dangerous forward at the moment.
Yeah, it's another bogey team though. Like traditionally Adelaide and Collingwood, so it's an interesting time ahead.
It'll be interesting this weekend. Look, I'm not too worried about Podsy Adley, and we've got Nick Smith for Eddie Betts. I'm very worried about Dangerfield, but the other player I really think we have to put a lot of effort into this weekend is Sloan. He started off the year brilliantly. He started off the year brilliantly, and he's really, really a dangerous player. And if a player can kick like that against us, we could be in a lot of trouble if we let him run loose.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see how we match up, who we make the sub, because I just couldn't understand Bird being the sub last week. I think he has a place in the starting 21 as a defensive forward. Yeah. I mean, I, maybe not on the Betts, but I can't understand that line of thinking.
No, the Bird's either plays on the ground or he doesn't play. Surely,
yeah.
He's not an impact player.
Exactly.
I'd like us to see Jeddah or Rowan. I don't actually know because Rowan was subbed out because of a leg injury. So I'd really like to see Jeddah as the sub. Or
I'd like Rowan. Rowan looked so good as the sub against West Coast.
Oh, but if he's fit is what I meant because I don't know how serious his leg injury was. But one of those.
Brandon Jack.
Yeah, even Brandon Jack, just someone to give life into the team. Right now we look slow, we look disinterested, our midfield can't get it together, we don't have a forward line. I'd actually like us to start, I know I'm backtracking, but I'd actually like us to start Rowan. Just put him in the forward line and just tell him to stay there. Or do that with Reid or someone. We can't afford to have no one.
Rowan did that against Collingwood. He mainly played as a forward.
But then he was subbed out. Like, I know his hand was forced, but still.
I bet he won't play this week, surely. He didn't look too good.
I think he'll have a week off in the seniors. He'll either play in the reserves or have a week off completely. He doesn't even look in form at the moment. He can't play seniors this week.
No.
We can't carry him.
No.
Well, he's got more potential than nearly anyone on our list, and we all know he's going to be... Give him a few weeks' time, he'll be best 22, one of our top players over the next few years, easily. But
I don't know about that. This knee ankle or whatever the hell he hurt, against North 2012, he's still not right.
But he's so young. It's not like he's 37. Not like Buddy in 10 years' time. But so young.
It's hard to be optimistic at the moment about the season, but, Adelaide are a pretty poor side. North are a team that we're actually the bogey side of, so get back to 2-2 and then, glass half full, maybe we do knock off Freo and get the win back. But I feel like we have to beat Freo and Hawthorn now in the next few weeks, and it's hard to get pumped up for the season at the moment, I think.
That being said, with Adelaide at the moment, they've had a pretty hard run into the start. Yes, they were pretty damn poor against Port Adelaide last weekend, but they weren't bad against Geelong the week before.
No, a bit like us, they got run over in both games, so it'll be an interesting last quarter.
Except look at the calibre of the teams they were playing versus ours. Like Collingwood you can maybe excuse, but GWS, no.
Yeah, Melbourne were pretty bad though today, hey?
No, they weren't great.
Yeah.
Paul Roos's start as Melbourne coach hasn't exactly gone off.
It's his
well.
worst ever loss as a coach.
Yeah.
Oh, he doesn't have the collar. He doesn't know how to coach without it.
The really sad... Sorry?
Does this side actually get back to Sydney know how to play without Adam Goods? Because this is the longest we've ever had to go without him, and we get worse every week that he's gone, I think, which is... I don't know if there's a correlation between his absence and the decline of the team, but...
I think Goods is, even forget his declining importance to us. He's so inspirational. One run through the midfield, one great kick, a mark, it lifts the team. And I don't see anyone on our playing list who has the potential to do that like he can. So, maybe we're not missing him directly, but we are definitely missing his indirect leadership and his inspiration.
I said it after the GWS and I was saying it after the Pies game. We just don't seem to have anyone out there who lifts the team. We don't have our Goodsy, we don't have our Bolton, we don't have our Kirk. And I thought it would be Jack. I thought Jack would come back in and be that guy, but he wasn't looking that great last night, which, maybe it's his injury, maybe he's a bit rusty, I don't know.
That also being said, McAfee did a pretty good job on him on the weekend and was pretty tight on him all night.
Yeah,
Coming off an injury, you can't... I'm willing to give Jack a bit of slack this week.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm kind of saying. It's not really his fault, but we need someone who'll lift the team, and we just don't seem to have that guy.
Yep, like Pendlebury last night. Like they were ordinary, but they had a class midfielder lifted, and we have.
And he's their captain.
I think ours is still good, sadly, and he's not playing, and he might not play again because it's not Buddy. Buddy's a champion of the game and a great forward, but there's not much he can do from the forward line when the team's down.
And he's not a leader of our club, or not yet at least.
No, that's why my biggest criticism of the weekend is still the captain, McVeigh. Look, where's the leadership? Maybe he should start subbing. He can just point his fingers and yell at everyone, free of the burden of playing for 3 quarters.
Only issue with that, same logic. Wasn't McVeigh playing in the half-back one?
He played through the middle at some points.
But still,
he was predominantly playing in the back line.
Go into a centre bounce and impose yourself on the game. Do something. I don't know.
Exactly. As our captain, as our leader, he should, sense the moment and sense the time when he should actually make his impact on the game.
Let's not also forget we have another supposed captain in Jack.
Yeah, we were just talking about that.
Yeah, who needs to stand up? We don't have right now, this year at least, we don't have a class midfielder we can rely on at the moment. And that you can read the AFL rankings and some are in the top 20 or whatever, but McGlynn
McVeigh has been our best player for the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's sad. He's not that good.
Yeah.
It's crazy because he was on the verge of being dropped and apparently delisted by some people on our board because we didn't need him anymore. And now he's our most consistent player. And I think the fact that he's playing so well is because he actually gives 110% every single week. And his consistent effort is highlighting how little everyone else's effort is. And I'm actually going to point my finger at someone who isn't a captain, but it's Hanbury. I know he's young, but he's been extremely disappointing, and you just have to wonder, can he shake a tag? What is the actual issue with Hanbury?
He wasn't that bad last night. He got 29 disposals and was one of the few players on our team that actually seemed like he could actually find the ball.
Yeah, later in the game, but to start the game, as I was saying earlier, he seemed very half-paced earlier. And, yeah, I think it was when he kicked his goal that he actually kind of thought, hang on, I should actually try. And, yeah, as you say, he did pick up and he did get quite a bit of the ball, which was good to see. But
that surprises me. As I said, I was at the ground, so I don't have the benefit of seeing all of the vision. But actually being at the ground, I don't know, it just looked like he was jogging and not fully committing to a tackle or a contest. But I'm criticising him specifically because I had such high hopes for him. And his last week and this week has just been so poor, and he's meant to be one of our most elite midfielders.
I think while we're pointing fingers at annoying players, the one I think escapes criticism is Ted Richards. Actually, I thought he was fading last year a little bit, and I know people still rated him, but I think this year he's been ordinary. He keeps playing from behind against taller opponents, and he's just not having any impact on games, and his disposals gotten Grundy-esque of late.
Yeah. Well, I think it was the goal that I think when they were up by 3 points and it was almost next goal one. I can't actually remember the incident. I just remember turning to Grim and just saying that was Richard's fault.
Yeah,
I think he might have dropped a mark or something.
There was a
Him
handball
and
back to
Piper
him
on
and
the
it came
line
off
and
his
it
chest.
almost went through, and they both just sort of watched it bounce. It was a real.
Yeah,
weird-
that was horrible.
yeah.
That was horrible, and it hit the post or something. But we were sitting there kind of saying, why did no one go for that?
The key
It was
one.
That being,
Yeah.
Smashed it.
Go ahead, Vonn.
I was going to say, that being said, we've always struggled. Like, Grundy and Ted have always struggled together as a partnership against the forwards like Cloak and like last week as well. You know, and those like Cameron, Patton, and now Cloak and I don't know who we're second forward was from memory. But
Jamie
the point
Elliott
is,
and Goldsack. Were the
but
combination of
Cloak, we've always struggled with Cloak. Like, it's not like he always kicks, you know, one goal or something. He's someone we have struggled with for the past 3 years.
Personally, I wasn't too worried with the job we did on Cloak last night. He only kicked 2 goals and we were forcing him further up the ground. I was happy with that.
If Collingwood kicked straight, we would have lost by about 60 points last night. The defence is rubbish at the moment, and it's led by Ted, Grundy, McVeigh. They're all crap.
Drop them all.
Well, who's winning the best and fairest at the moment? Probably McGlynn, maybe Jetta second.
Jetta second.
Yeah,
Jetta?
he's been average, but he's got a bit of the ball, had a bit of an impact. I don't know. That's just
Right now, the top 5 for me. Top 3. You'd have McGlynn first. Tom Mitchell hasn't been bad either week.
Yeah, Tom Mitchell's been pretty good.
Luke,
Luke Parker would be up there.
Luke's been very average.
compared to everyone, all of our other
Yeah.
midfielders.
Yeah, he's been just as bad as Kennedy.
Yeah, but
okay.
they probably be top 5. That's how poor we're going, because you've got to pick someone in the best and fairest.
See, I'm surprised you said Jetta because if I was a coach, I'd be on the verge of dropping Jetta because I think he's done absolutely nothing.
He's getting a fair bit of the ball last night.
And he
I don't
seemed
know,
like the only player that may actually use it correctly.
Yeah, I don't know, he makes a few mistakes, but he takes the game on, and not many people took the game on in the last 2 weeks, so I'm probably marking him pretty leniently, but his pace is also there that no one else has, so I cut him a bit more slack.
I agree, Swansrule. He seems like the only player that actually can.
Well, he's an
Yeah.
X-factor player, so you've got to take the good with the bad, a bit like Stevie J. Not that he's the class of Stevie J at all, but he's going to do some stupid things, but he's going to kick the running goal from 50. You've got to leave him in the team, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, well, what are you guys' predictions for this week against Adelaide? Vonn.
You're picking on me tonight. You've asked me to speak first in pretty much everything.
Not that she's counting.
Yeah, not that I'm counting. Anyway, I think we'll come out against Adelaide, and I don't know why I'm saying this, but I've lost a bit of faith in the club these past 2 weeks. I've backed them. I don't know. I think Adelaide might get up. I don't know why. It's the fact that it's at Adelaide Oval. They are desperate for a win, and they have not played that badly. Another thing is we've always struggled in Adelaide. It's a bit like the Collingwood at ANZ. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm going to pick the Crows by about 23 points.
Okay, personally, I just want to. I don't think we've actually struggled too much against Adelaide in Adelaide. We beat them there last year.
Yeah, I was going to say.
The most damning statistic for me with Adelaide is we haven't beaten them at the SCG since 2004.
Okay, well, in that case, we still struggle with Adelaide either way.
Look, I think we should respond this week against Adelaide. It'll be a close game, and I think we'll get up by about 2 goals. But I'm not really predicting that with much confidence. SM, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I'm going to say similar to you. I mean, our last good performance was against Adelaide in Adelaide before Kurt Tippett came into the side. I do think we'll get up. I do think we'll play quite well because, I mean, we just have to. Maybe 4 or 5 goals I think will be in it, but I think it'll be pretty close throughout the game and we might just run over the top of them. Hopefully, I don't know, wishful thinking, I guess.
Swansrule, do you have a prediction for this week?
I'm going to keep the faith for one more week and say that we'll beat Adelaide by 10 goals. I don't think they've got a match-up for Barty. I think the first half last night there were some alright signs, and I think that if the players can't respond this week, with the talent that they have, there's something wrong. So I think the Swans by a comfortable margin. But they'll need to be up by half-time by a fair bit to hold on to that margin.
Okay, now just for our last segment of tonight, SM, I believe you wanted to take this away, our doomsday and sure thing scenarios.
Okay, first I've heard of it. Throw me under the bus. Righto. Okay. So I guess new segment. We're kind of blatantly ripping off 360, but I'll start off with my sure thing for the week from a Swans perspective. And my sure thing is that I reckon Buddy will fire. I'm putting my faith in the big man. I reckon he'll kick 4 goals against Adelaide and really announce himself as a Swan.
Good one. Well, my sure thing would be that there will be positive noises all week from the Swans, and a lot of buzzwords about work rate and that sort of thing. And there'll be a different player each day coming out in the press with a comment on how we're going to lift.
Vonn, what's your sure thing?
Alright, my sure thing is that anytime Buddy touches the ball and does something bad with it, the Adelaide cheer squad, audience, inbreds, whatever they are, they're going to start jeering. That's my sure thing.
My sure thing for this week is Kieran Jack to respond with over 25 disposals and to be named in our top 3 players on ground.
Nice.
And my doomsday for the week, worst possible scenario, would be us losing and being -3 to start the year. That's the absolute doomsday right there.
Yeah, mine's exactly the same. Yeah.
Mine would actually be, to be specific, would be to be beaten in the last quarter and fail to pass 70 points in a losing effort again.
Yeah, and echoing that, my doomsday is definitely to continue the trend and only win the first quarter. Buddy to have no impact and have a 5 or 6 goal loss and really leave us questioning where we are as a team.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Can't argue with that.
Can't argue.
Who's under most pressure, guys?
John Longmire's hairdresser to keep that baldness out, Dave.
I'm going to do a different one. Malcheski's hairdresser for whatever is going on with his head and beard.
Going for a hair thing here for the under pressure.
What was with Reece Shaw's hair? He looked like a cream.
He looks like McVeigh. He looks far too much like McVeigh at the ground. It's just very confusing with them both in the back line.
He looked a bit like McVeigh on TV, but then he hit a target, so I knew it wasn't McVeigh.
One more thing. How weird but strangely perfect was it seeing Jesse White in a Collingwood Guernsey?
It's because of the sleeve tat.
It is. He just looks like he was made to be a magpie.
And how perfect was it that he missed that goal?
Yeah.
He just couldn't do that to us.
Just reminded us of why we got rid of him.
And how perfect.
Anyway,
11 disposals, no marks.
Yeah.
Anyway, let
there's a
Vonn
stat-
talk.
there's-
Let him finish his podcast.
There's a stat about there's a stat about Nathan Brown. Every game that we've gone to and attended, Nathan Brown has been subbed off for Collingwood.
Bonz, would you like to finish up this podcast?
Well, everyone, I hope you've managed to get through this week's podcast. I'm Bonz. Joining me today has been Swansrule 100, SM and Vonn. Thank you and good night.